Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you all for joining. This we got an amazing video for you guys. I'm really excited. We about to get real today. I'm about to be real with you. We about to get real. We about to talk about some real important topics. Okay, we are here to discuss men and women, the battle of the sexes from a biblical perspective. And I'm not here by myself. As you can see, I have the lovely Sarah Corona with me. She is a licensed therapist. She specializes in individual therapy from children to adult age. And she is really going to not only ask me questions from a male perspective, because she needs some answers too. Women need some answers. She's going to give the female perspective on a lot of questions that I think men want to know. Sarah, how you doing? How you feeling today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited. I'm excited to get into these questions.
Me too. Me too. Do we have the same chair?
Do we? I got this from not Amazon.
Yeah.
It's
No, maybe. It looks the same color. Anyway, I just noticed that.
It is a good chair.
Um so, as with everything, let us begin with prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity to come together in fellowship, Lord. Um, I thank you for just giving us these ideas to have these conversations, which are very important, so that we could learn how to better communicate with each other, how to better have better relationships, have better friendships, have better marriages, and better glorify your name, Lord. So I ask that you bless this conversation. May the Holy Spirit lead us and guide us in the things that we say, Lord, and let it strike the hearts and minds of all those who will uh, listen to this video, watch this video on the rewatch, Lord. We ask that your name be glorified on high. And we ask this in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So this was actually Sarah's idea.
Yeah.
She came to me some months ago and was like, "Yo, can we do a video about how men and women can better communicate with each other, how we can improve the relationships that we have?" And I was like, "Yo, that's a really good idea." And you're probably the perfect person to have this conversation with because, you know, you deal with a lot of men and women.
Yeah.
You are a trained therapist, so you're gonna really like. I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about uh, emotional perspective and just how the mind processes things. And I know you've worked very hard on your responses.
I
She's had
have.
she's had these questions
I've been ready for them for weeks ago.
for weeks. Okay, so I'm sure it's just going to be gold.
Yeah.
So why do you think conversations like this, which are being had uh, a lot in, especially on YouTube and podcasts? I mean, there's just so many people out there that are talking, but why do you think it's important for you, for me, a pastor and a therapist, to have these conversations and to get real on these topics?
Well, I think it's important because, first of all, to be able to get both perspectives, I think is really, really important because we often hear one-sided kind of responses, and I think to bring more awareness to people that there can be an overlap in terms of what's healthy and what's biblical. Um,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
so I think it's really important that we get like we're able to kind of have like these conversations and more so to talk about it from both genders because a lot of the videos out there is like either there's a guy talking about the male perspective or a woman talking about the female perspective, but to be able to have like both kind of talking it out in the same space, I think is going to be really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And over here, the biblical. I like what you said. The overlap
Yeah.
with what's healthy and what's biblical. And I'm a strong believer in what's biblical is 100% healthy.
Exactly.
So it it's really what we should all be basing our lives on and our relationships. And because we're not going to just talk about marriage and dating. I think these things will help any relationship that
Yeah,
we have with the opposite sex, to better understand each other and just to kind of see kind of how the others think,
right.
because in some ways, you know, we're very different.
Yeah. Men and
Man,
women are wired. We're wired differently. So
yes.
we're
Like, do you
gonna
see
be
that in your clients?
yes. I think that's one of the reasons that I kind of this kind of came up for me is because I don't have very many male clients, but the few that I was having, a lot of the conversations that were coming up were in regard to their relationships with the women in their lives. And
Yeah.
so, um,
Our women cause us stress.
yeah, oh, don't start with me already. Now, there's definitely has been a lot of tension with some of the clients that I've worked with, and so this whole idea of battle of the sexes, this has been going on for a long time,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
and it's like this is God's design. Like there's no mistake here. God created man and God created woman, and this is His perfect design, and He made us different for a reason. And so rather than like fighting with each other, and like criticizing why men are like this, why women are like this, like can we just understand each other a little bit better?
Mm.
And I think this is why we started the conversation. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
I love that you said,
yeah,
uh, this is not a mistake.
yeah,
Men being with women is not a mistake. It is God's design. And
right,
so it's perfect.
yeah,
So we perfectly match. We're, oh Lord, I'm gonna get real cliche. We are a perfect combination. Like, we are. I'm glad we're starting with some of the positives. This is, if we go back to God's design, and obviously we're not living in God's design, we're living in a fallen world, but
right,
that doesn't mean that God's design disappears. That doesn't mean that it becomes obsolete. It's ingrained in our DNA. We are a puzzle piece to each other, and so
right.
I hope we do really really flesh that out today. But I think you have the first question for me, so
You're gonna let the ladies go first.
I'm going to let the ladies go first. I'm not a gentleman.
You are.
Look. I am.
Point,
Listen.
brownie point.
Hopefully this works. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I guess I have to do that every time. Hold up.
Okay.
Wait. How does this? This always happens. Hold up.
Do you want to do a double screen?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a double screen.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, perfect.
All right.
Okay.
So I think this was the first question you had listed.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So essentially, what does respectful behavior look like in dating? And so the biblical reference I think was in first I think was in Ephesians 5:33. And there is a big conversation about how important it is for a man to be respected, especially by either the woman in his life or in general, right? So if you're looking for a wife that models this, certain type of behavior that's respectful, what kind of characteristics would a man be looking for in order to, pinpoint like, okay, these are some characteristics that I know will be positive for a future wife.
Mm-hmm. Um. So the idea of respect, I guess I'll start with the biblical references. So in First Timothy 3:11, the Apostle Paul is describing um, deacons' wives, And he's saying wives should be this way and not. It's not necessarily talking about women in general. He is talking about women that would be leaders in the church, deaconesses, and things like that. But I still think this is something to aspire to. These character traits, this list of behaviors is something that should reflect all women after God's own heart. So this is 1 Timothy 3:11.
Okay.
So it must be dignified. Okay, the things that you do, you hold yourself in a higher regard. There's a classiness to you, the way you carry yourself, and how you present yourself to the world. You're not presenting yourself in immodest clothing. You're not going out there, looking ratchet. Because at the end of the day, especially a wife is the representation of her husband.
Yeah.
I mean, if we think of the wives that we know, the marriages that we look up to, when we see the wife, we see the better half, as it were. We do think of the husband, or we do think of that household. I don't know. It's every member of the household represents the household, but the wife, I believe, has a significant part of that. And so, how she treats other people, how she handles her business, how she talks to her husband in public, these things must be filled with dignity. So a dignified woman, a classy woman, a woman that you look at and you could see, just her day to day, you're like, yo, that's a woman of high status, just
Yeah.
based on how she carries herself.
Right.
Um,
So this would be like the way if you're not married and you're kind of, looking, um, would it be like you were observing the way that she speaks and how she treats other people?
Most definitely,
Okay.
most definitely, and how she dresses.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. I think women should understand that they will be judged based on how they dress. I mean,
Okay.
period. I mean, it's not about
Yeah.
whether it should or shouldn't happen. It's going to. And I'm not saying that um, I wouldn't draw a line as far as all women need to be conservatively dressed. And, I don't think we have the time to break down exactly what is, conservative, what's raunchy, because,
Right.
I think that really depends on the man and his atmosphere and his industry, Um, but I think obviously we don't want our ladies seeking to, and I understand. So here's the rub. It's like,
Yeah.
women when they're dressing, when they're carrying themselves, what is modest and what is dignified.
Mhm.
Women can't control men how they look at them.
Yeah.
Women can't control the lust of men, and I know I always hear pushback and complaints from women, because it's like, well, it's not my job to not
Right.
force you to lust on me, or it's not my job to to dictate how you approach women if you do so in a bad way. And the way I look at it is similar to my tattoos.
Yeah.
So I freely chose to. I wasn't born with these
Yeah.
tattoos. I was freely chose to put them on my body, and so with that, I have to carry myself appropriately,
Mhm.
because I know, especially in my work industry, I work in corporate
Yeah.
banking and things like that, that it may not be looked at in the highest regard.
Right.
And one part of me should be like, you know what, forget it. I'm gonna be myself, individuality, and express myself however I feel. But another part is like, well, I can choose what I want to expose. I can choose how people look at me. So most times I
Right.
wear long sleeve button downs, so if I don't want people to see my tattoos and come up to whatever conclusion they might, I cover it up. And so in the same way, ladies, as a man,
Mhm.
when I look at a woman that is dressed provocatively, that's the assumption that I get, and every man is going to get. Now, a
What's
man
the assumption?
that she's
Go
not
ahead.
dignified.
Okay. That's a nice way to put it. That's a nice
that
great.
she wants attention.
Okay.
She um I mean, not dignified is, I think, accurate too. I
Yeah.
think it's like, you should think of your body as much more valuable and
Right.
less accessible
Right.
than for public consumption.
Right.
So if anything that goes from anything that's for everybody
hmm
is inherently less valuable. And
Special to your person because everybody else saw it and knows what it looks like. And um, so, okay, so what I'm hearing you say then is like women, we all, right, have a responsibility, right? We take ownership over how we dress ourselves and how we present ourselves outside.
yeah,
Um,
and it. Ooh, sorry. Every 30 minutes, this closes. This turns
it's
on.
like lights out. Good night.
Yeah, yeah. I'm out of here. I'm finished. Yes. All right. So go ahead.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, and I think it's important for women to know that because I think some women might fall into the hype of like trying to be attractive and seen by men, and so what better way to catch the attention of a man by their physical appearance? Because that's really what first, right, grabs men's attention, right?
Yeah, and even just practically, it's the first
Yeah,
thing that we're exposed to. I mean,
yeah,
we don't see your personality. Well, we do, but we don't see your character
right.
right off the bat. Like it could be a woman that's dressed provocatively, and she could be a prude. She could be very conservative and all these things, and I think that's the issue. Dave Chappelle had like an amazing skit where he was like saying, women get mad when men treat them like prostitutes, but they have a prostitute's uniform on. It's like, well, what if I
hmm
put on a police officer's uniform and somebody came and, hey, police officer, help me. It's like, oh, I'm not a police officer. It's like, but you're wearing a uniform. And so now it gets hard to like define what that is, and not to get into the whole modesty conversation. I think that could trail off, but
We could do another
um,
video on that.
right. I have actually done a couple of videos on like modesty. There was one woman that was like criticizing her dad for making her little sister, who was living at the home, go back in the house because she had a crop top and shorts on.
hmm
Um, and so he didn't like the way it looked. And so, it kind of went viral on TikTok. So I did a response video to that. And, you know, I do think that this is one way to a woman shows respect
Yeah,
for her man. If
yeah,
maybe you don't agree with the fact that he doesn't like what you're wearing, you don't think that it's anything wrong with it, but he
yeah.
does. And I think that was the issue. It was her father who had the issue with it, and her sister kind of took it to a whole, you know, she took it to a whole like men
Right.
should be responsible for the lust of her of their own lusts, and it's not a woman's responsibility to not make or to not allow men to lust after them. And
Right.
but it was her father. And it's like, to show respect for a father, a husband, you should you should
Right.
change.
And also, your style, your how you express yourself in your apparel doesn't have to be restricted. You can still have a sense of style without, showing all of your essential body parts.
Exactly. Exactly.
Might mean a few extra layers of clothing,
Yeah.
whatever. Make it your own. But I think it's important that women are aware that what they put on does send a message. Even, and it might not be an accurate message, but that's what you're portraying.
And especially if it's not an accurate message, you shouldn't share it.
Right.
But and that's one thing I believe men as a whole, especially myself, really like keen in on a
Yeah.
woman that can express herself in an interesting way. Like you can see her personality come out in how she carries herself, and she's not uh, dressing provocatively. She's not obviously, showing a bunch of skin and all these things. Because at the end of the day, that's kind of easy. It's kind of easy to get to be interesting when you are, the athletic wear. Like
How dangerous is it, Zach?
it's yo. I ain't gonna lie. I never knew that leggings has evolved to
Yeah.
like include butt cheek pockets.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
every single, like I go to the gym and then these leggings, like they it's like everybody's got a super wedgie, and it's
Oh,
like
it's
I
supposed
never.
to, it's supposed to enhance the booty, you know?
It basically puts it on Front Street. Like it's basically this. It's so thin. Like listen, if
For
you had
I really do feel for men who are trying to stay pure in their thoughts, and you know what I mean, because it's hard out here. And um yeah.
so a woman that we would, I think a woman that's dignified can do both, as you said. Like
Yeah.
they can be interesting. You don't have to dress Amish. You could be interesting and not show
Yeah.
all your essential parts, your
Yeah.
sensual parts.
And I love what you said earlier, and to your point is like you want to give room for your character to show, right? Like if if this is what's getting all the attention, there's not going to be a lot of room for that curiosity to say, let me get to know her. Like what else is there? You know?
Exactly, exactly. Um, so back to First Timothy 3, uh, it says not malicious gossips. So
Yeah.
you know, I'm not going to say all women, and let's just set it right here. We're not going to say all women, okay? Not all women, but in general, I do see that women do gossip a lot, and I mean, people gossip. So I'm not saying men don't do it. Men don't talk about other people, but it's interesting. The word, this is the NASB. So the NASB is a very word for word, strict word for word translation. So it's like more accurate to what the biblical authors were talking about. And so it says not malicious gossips,
Yeah.
getting together and talking about other people negatively and, just spreading,
Yeah.
spewing dissension amongst brothers, which Proverbs 6:16 through 19 talks that
Yeah.
when God hates when someone, man or woman, spews dissension amongst brethren. So, um, and I think there is a fine line between gossip and, talking about people, because
Yeah.
as a pastor, people, and as a therapist, people is, you don't do this, but I do this. People is my business. So I do talk about people a lot,
Yeah.
with other pastors and strategies and
But
things like that. And
but
what,
it's more constructive.
yeah, there may be a little venting. There might be some venting.
Fine, fine, but it's in a contained environment.
Yeah.
Not like
Yes.
you're out here talking to Susie, Sally, Bob, and Joe,
Right.
and right, that's your support system, and it's contained, and whatever is said there stays there.
Exactly. Exactly. So no malicious gossips. Temperate. So temperate means she's not quick to change emotions
Mm,
so quickly. So she's kind of even keeled. She's not quick to anger, quick to
yeah,
sadness, quickly annoyed,
right.
um, and so you know those that character is something very valuable in life because there's all sorts of manners of things that are going to happen, and a man can't predict all of it and correct all of it before it happens. So, um, getting really upset really quickly is something I personally avoid, especially selecting.
I think we're gonna talk about that too later on.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and then what else? And faithful in all things. She can be trusted. And I mean, I think your next question kind of asked for more of that, but as far as respect, um, I think Proverbs 12:4 sums it up really good. An excellent wife is the crown of her husband, but she who shames him is like rottenness in his bones.
mm,
And so, an excellent wife is the crown of her husband. Like it, 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 she signifies to other people that he's a king based on her behavior, based on how she is, how she treats him, how she treats the household. Like she is the one that like I love the imagery there. Like a king wears a crown, especially in this day and age. This was written by King Solomon, so he was known. Like you spot the king if you're playing chess. You spot the king piece because it's the only one with a crown on top of its head. And so an excellent wife is the crown on a man's head. So like she makes him she turns him into a king.
mm,
And but then one who brings him shame, her behavior, or how she treats other people, what gets back to him as far as like, oh, we heard that your woman was out and about doing this and this, and like I said earlier, she represents him.
right. And
So
it could bring like honor or disgrace to the man.
yeah, and it's like rottenness to his bones. So I think uh, women should, uh, as far as respecting, women should do their best themselves. Like this is not anything I'm saying is not men should force this upon their woman. This is
Right.
a woman taking it upon herself to do this.
Yeah,
Um, she should never bring shame to her man, and and all that in all its forms.
it's good.
All right. Any follow ups on that? Are we ready for
I think we're ready to go.
my my first question? Okay.
All right,
All right.
there we go.
Oh, jeez. Hold up.
I mean, we could look at you the whole time. That's fine.
Just have you be a voice in the background.
Yeah, the voice.
All right.
Yeah.
So First Peter 3:7 states that men should live with their wives in an understanding way, as with someone weaker,
Yeah.
and because we are both co-heirs of the grace of God, and we don't
Yeah.
want our prayers hindered. So I
Right.
mean, God really thinks it's important for husbands to treat their wives with respect. I mean, to live with their wives in an understanding way. He makes it so important that your prayers could be hindered.
Yeah.
So my question, madam, to you:
Yeah.
how does a man speak to a woman in a more, or even just live with a woman in a more understanding way?
Hmm. That's a great question. So I think the term like to understand, I think for men, it's like I would encourage men to be more aware of the way that they speak to a woman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in that, when the Bible references women being more fragile or more delicate, it's because we are the weaker. And when I mean weaker, I don't mean, no, like different value as a person, but that we are physically weaker. We are a
Yeah.
little bit delicate, right?
Yeah.
We may process our emotions, may be more sensitive in terms of how we process our emotions and things like that. And when I was looking at the verse, I thought was really interesting. And like the root word, that weaker also had a reference to someone who was like physically ill.
Mm.
So I thought that was really interesting because when we're caring for someone who's physically ill or who's weak, there's a certain kind of tenderness and care that we provide for that person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's a great way to kind of think of it is like when you are addressing a woman, whether it's your mom, sister, girlfriend, whatever, I think this applies. There needs to be an awareness of like, she's not a man. So I'm not going to talk to her rough. I'm not going to, be rough with her in terms of the way I speak to her, interact with her, or joke around with her. I might not be as coarse with her as I've seen men talk. And so, and I imagine that the way that men talk to each other wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to the way they might address a lady, right? And based on what you said before, in terms of women kind of keeping themselves in this dignified way, is like men treat them as such, right?
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's actually this really cool. It's like a TikTok, and it says like um, boy dad versus girl dad. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it shows this dad how he interacts with his son and his daughter when they're playing
I think
together.
I have seen that.
I love it.
Yeah.
So with the boy, he's super rough. He's like throwing him around, and
He's
he's like
slamming him, body
him
slamming
over.
him.
And with his little girl, he's like he like drops her like a delicate flower, and it's like, and you see the difference, and I think that's a beautiful representation of like, yeah, when you're, when guys are with guys, y'all can be rough and tumble, and elbow each other and all this, but when you're around a woman, you need to be mindful of that and like try to be a little bit more caring, a little bit softer with her.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
so um
So I think, is this, one of my homeboys, C Scopes, he has his own YouTube channel. He's starting it up. But he had a great, he said something pretty profound the other day, at one of our dinner churches. He was like, so there's a difference between delivery and impact. So my question, because I guess my response to some of this is, I've definitely spoken to women harshly. I will admit that. I have. He didn't have to agree like that. He didn't have to agree to that quick.
I haven't seen it, but I'm saying it
You have. That was quick.
has.
uh, but sometimes this is just kind of how I'm, like, from if a male receiving that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like my delivery wasn't harsh, but what I'm saying may have a harsh impact, because what I'm saying
Mm,
may really
yeah.
hurt, or it may really, like, it may be something you really don't want to hear. So how, because I love what you said about, uh, you treating a weaker vessel as someone who is ill, and someone who grew up with a mother that was ill. That makes, a lot of sense to me. um, and sometimes the rub for a guy is, yeah, we're quick to, like, when we're passionate, sometimes
Yeah.
our, and this is what gets me every time, my passion gets it gets too hot. It gets
Yeah.
too hot for the lady, and she's like, "Yo, like,
What is that
take,
sound effect supposed to be?
like, I need you to just chill a little bit." And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
how do you, how does a woman,
Mhm.
like, if what I'm saying has a negative impact, has a really strong impact on you, but I deliver it in a kind way,
Yeah.
can that be misconstrued or confused? Like when you think about it later, it's like, oh, he was too harsh on me.
Um, well, I think it depends on a lot of factors. I think one, it depends on um, what your relationship is to that person, because if they know you well enough and they know your heart and your integrity, they know that whatever you're saying is coming from a good place,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So even if it stings, right? Um, if I know that the person that's talking to me is saying it because that person wants the best for me, even though it may not feel good in the moment, I'll receive it eventually. It may take time. It's
Eventually.
Yeah, it may take a little time, right? So not just, I think tone is important, like
Mm,
definitely the way that you speak and communicate, but also being mindful of like asking yourself, like, what do I want the outcome of this conversation to be?
mm,
Do I want her to receive it in a like receive this, or am I kind of going off of my emotion in the moment? I'm frustrated, and that's another thing to keep in mind. Like, where are you emotionally when you're having this conversation?
mm,
Because if you're feeling impatient, angry, irritated, annoyed, it's going to disrupt that flow, right?
mm,
So sometimes there's a pending conversation and it might not be the time to talk about it. Like if your emotions are too hot.
mm.
So you might need to say, I want to talk to you about this, but I'm going to come back to it. I'll be in touch, you know.
I'll
Um
be in touch.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, so it's a balance between tone and, that delivery. Like you want that landing to be as smooth as possible.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
there's only so much you can do, and I know we're going to cover that a little bit later, but um, if if you did everything in your power to speak in a kind way, in a loving way, and deliver that message, and it's still not well received, then you kind of need to wash your hands and like let it sit with that person,
Mm,
because we can't control how the other person receives the information. We can do only so much.
mm-hmm.
Now, if you can be introspective and you say, I was a little rough, I could have done that, but if you have a clean conscience that you did everything you could and it still wasn't well received, then you kind of have to leave that between her and God.
Mm,
And and we can't control other people's feelings about it.
right. Yeah. No, that's good. Definitely waiting to
Yeah.
discuss certain things when, because I think men think that emotions don't affect how we deliver or how we operate, but I mean we're people, we're individuals, so that's just not the case. So we shouldn't let the sun go down on our anger, and I don't think Paul in I think the book of Romans was trying to put a time frame, like
Right.
you have to rush to talk about these things. So there should be a time that we do talk about it,
Yeah.
and I was talking to some other married couples sometimes where there's issue between them, like they can't go to sleep until they talk about it, or at least they get to a point.
Right.
There is, like you said, I think Pastor told me, was like, we need to get to a point
Mhm.
in this conflict and we need to let it sit
Yeah.
and like just kind of go back, sleep, and we don't, you know, if a conflict hasn't been resolved, you shouldn't punish the other person
Right.
because, especially in a marriage, if you have a conflict and you feel these heavy emotions, like I don't know, you just
Yeah,
I don't like you right now. I really don't like you right now, and
that's real.
yeah, but even despite that, you should still love on them.
Yeah,
Like you shouldn't act like something is different. You shouldn't stop
that's
doing, huh?
yeah. It's hard to do, but yes, I agree.
It is hard to do. It's not natural, and
Yeah,
but that's love.
yeah,
That's the real definition of love. When we don't want to do something, when we don't feel like doing something, we do it anyway.
right.
So okay, all right, that was good.
Yeah,
Thank you for that answer.
sure.
Now let me fix this again. All right.
There we go.
Okay. Okay.
Oh wow, I see you in like all these different angles.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like I'm stuck in trapped in a prism.
A prism, not a prism. Yeah. When I set this up, I should have. How do I get rid of this one? Oops.
It's like all the sides of Zach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is gonna get annoying. Okay. So I'll
Well, it
make
was fine.
it
The initial.
was, but I'm trying to hold up. So solo, then add to the right. All right, there we go. That's what I'm gonna just keep doing.
You want your good side. That's what it is.
Well, I set this camera up so it could be like the other camera, putting all this other stuff in the background. Um, okay,
So, question: what do men look for in relationships, and I would say more so romantic relationships with a woman? What are some maybe like key key things that are really important for a man?
so first and foremost, help.
Help. That's okay. Tell me more. I'm really curious now.
Okay, so
I'm
in
taking
the
notes.
in the beginning, God created everything, and
Yeah.
everything was good. The first thing He said that wasn't good was that man was alone. And so he devised to create a helper suitable, a helper fit for him. And then he created Eve out of his own rib. And so the reality is, women, at the foundation of a woman's design is her ability to help a man. And that's, I think, as far as male female relationships romantically,
Mhm.
that's what all men, they may not even be able to articulate that. That's what all men want. They want help. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you just cook and clean and all
Mhm.
these things. You know, every man that is doing what he's supposed to do, he's supposed to be going after God's purpose in his life. So he's after something. He's doing something. He's going somewhere because God has a plan for all of us. Something for us to do. And I, we it's different, but a woman should see that in a man. And I mean, if you're interested in a man, it should be because you see where he's going, and you not only can help him get there, you want to be with him when he gets there or as he goes there. Um, and so this is also like confirmed or stated in Proverbs 31. Proverbs 31 is a famous chapter that talks about an excellent wife, and Proverbs 31:27. Hold up. Should have had this pulled up already. Proverbs 31 27.
Yeah.
Um, Wait, 27 or yeah. She watches over the activities of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness.
Yeah.
So she is a worker at home.
Hmm.
Now, obviously, she doesn't have to stay at home, but she is like she's building her house, and I kind of talk about that later. Uh, she is involved in the foundations of the home and uh, her man's peace, and knowing that like her whole household is it knows that they're covered because of her. They know that she's works for them and she's taking care of them and they don't have to worry. And it also earlier in that chapter it says that he lacks nothing good, or
Hmm.
he has no lack of gain. This is Proverbs 31:11. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. And so, no lack of gain. She does him good, not evil. Like, these are the things that women are amazing at.
Yeah.
I mean, I think uh, there has been no great man.
Hmm.
Well, I wouldn't say no great man, but most great men, especially after God's own heart, who has fulfilled God's purpose, didn't do it alone. They they needed their wives to be there. And if you, I mean, talking with, you know, as a single pastor, I definitely see the value of having a wife that is helpful, that is involved, that is um, puts her hands to the plow,
Right.
and church planting right now. The wives supporting of their husbands, supporting of the ministry. If we didn't have that, we would have nothing.
Right.
So, one second.
That's fine.
I gotta get in the
So,
camera. Go ahead.
so can you give aside from, because women are we're more we're nurturers, right? Like we're more naturally that way. So aside from, you know, taking care of the home and, once you're already married and things like that, taking care of the home, cooking, cleaning, and all those things, what are some other things outside of that? Um, Particularly like if you're just dating, let's say you're not even in the marriage stage, and yet like this woman wants to be a help in some way. How can that be shown in other ways?
Um, this is I got a video coming out or that I'm working on that, you know, we need to just get rid of this word dating. Like
Um, did I
dating
open a
just
can of worms?
huh?
Did I open a can of worms?
No, well, yes, but I'm gonna put them back in the can because I do want to answer your question
Okay,
because the modern concept of dating,
courting.
courting, yes, we should court, but
Yeah,
no, I mean you meant dating. It's okay. It's
I take
okay.
it back. Rewind.
You're like, nah, courting. No, let's get the right word. No, 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 no. um, so in dating, there is no commitment.
Yeah,
There's no commitment in a dating relationship. Commitment is, I guess, according to God's standards, commitment is marriage. And so, before that official commitment comes, none of these things really they don't they're not. I guess a woman is not required to do any one of these things, and or she's not expected. There shouldn't be an expectation for these things in dating, because and that's the issue. Dating, courtship is not supposed to be that long. When we
right.
think about dating, we think about these people in 2, 3, 4 year relationships, and now you don't need to get married in 6 months, but you get a lot of these issues the longer you are not married, but you're together. Like you should be married if a woman is like heavily involved in helping the man, it should be after marriage, but marriage shouldn't be 6 years from now.
Right.
It's like, of
You did
course.
open, you did open a can of worms. Okay, so, okay. In the I guess my question is more so, if it's not in the home, like how can she support a man? Because it almost sounds like these are more wifely duties, like at home, right? That's the kind of help, and I get that that's a big part of it. But is there like emotional support that a man needs? If, or does he kind of want to? And we'll come back to that later. But is there things that he does in his day to day with work and things like that um, you know
I
I
think
guess.
she should present herself as reliable and trustworthy.
Got it.
I think that it's an open-ended response because it
Yeah.
really just depends on the relationship, depends on what he's got going on. Like
Right.
if you're even if you're courting and he's building a business, you know, um, he shouldn't be requiring you to do stuff or even really should be expecting it. But yeah, you should express interest in the things he's got going on. If you're not, why wouldn't you? It's like if you're really interested in the guy and you really see where he's going in his life and you want like you're open to this courtship, you're open to being his wife. It seems it would be a natural outflow of all those things that you would want to be involved with what he's involved with.
Right.
You would want to put yourself in his routine, his rhythm, and you're not putting yourself there to be a distraction. You're putting yourself there to be an addition, to
Mm,
be
good.
involved.
Yeah.
So whereas he shouldn't expect certain things from you, and you're under no requirement. But
Right.
I would think that a woman would, definitely a woman that's embracing her God given design, even before marriage,
Mhm.
she sees what he's got going on. She's going to,
Naturally wants to help.
yeah, she wants to express interest. And that could be if he's hosting an event, she is, she's always there.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to come first, or maybe she doesn't have to, um, I don't know. There could be level
Yeah.
differing degrees, but she could be helping in the planning because I'm sure she has some great ideas.
Right.
She could be, you know, make sure she's present and not just there. She could actually show interest in what's going on, and or if he's, um, as far as emotional support, I mean, definitely there should be a lot of conversations. And,
Mhm.
you know, a man needs peace. And so, because he's getting stressed from his job, he's getting stressed from his family, he's getting stressed from all these other things. A woman, his woman, he does, you want the idea, the goal is, and this won't happen all the time. And this is a woman talking to herself, as
Right.
far as towards her man. It's like, there should be a,
Right.
for a man when he comes home
Yeah.
and or when he sees his wife, like, for me, it's like if he's holding up the world, if he's holding up this 10-ton boulder, and the person, his woman walks in the room, he should be like, oh, okay, she gonna help me lift. I'm carrying 90, she can carry 10,
Right.
or you know,
Right.
um, something of that nature.
That's helpful. Thank you for
Yeah,
clarifying.
no problem. I think I had some more. Wait, you said listen. Okay, all right. So help,
Yeah.
then trust. So I think we talked about that. The heart, Proverbs 31:11. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he has no lack of gain. So she is faithful in all things, which we talked about in 1 Timothy 3. So when you're faithful in all things, trust naturally comes from that.
Right.
Also, building a home. So this is Proverbs 14:1. The wise woman builds her house, but the foolish tears it down with her own hands. And I think the idea is, at least practically, the way I look at this is, it's like, a, a woman is, and it doesn't have to be like the physical location, but
Right.
home, like home is where the heart is and all that. Like, you know, the relationship and the bond, and
Right.
it's like the team that's created, and it's like you guys operate a specific way. You guys like I don't know the plans that she creates. Like let's go do this, let's go do that, or whatever. And then also the home. Like she, and this is another thing. Like with as far as dating, this is why it's tough to use the
They're gonna
Bible.
can away.
Uh, just peek in it real quick.
Okay, all right.
If the Bible doesn't discuss dating really at all, there's really no examples at all of dating in the Bible, and that's because, I mean, that should in and of itself tell us how dating is not a destination, and
Right.
and and it we need to get our minds out of like, okay, so how do we you know do this in dating? Well, you probably shouldn't, but you shouldn't really be dating for that long either. So, all right, back, close, back. It's the can is closed. All right,
You're like,
now,
yes.
all right. Um, and then sex.
Oh, oh no. You left that one for last. Okay. Okay, but this obviously in marriage, right?
Yes,
Like,
yes, yes. Obviously. Obviously, Sarah. Obviously, Sarah. I just said we dating is
okay,
bad, and
right. What do men look for in relationships? Okay, when they get married, they're looking for sex.
yeah, no, I mean, we do need to stress that,
Yeah.
First Corinthians 7, Paul said that, it's good for a man not to have sexual relations with a woman. Um, but because sexual immorality is so common and prevalent, each woman should have her own husband, and each man should have his own wife, and they should give each other the conjugal rights. They shouldn't withhold themselves from each other unless they are fasting for the Lord. And even if you're doing that, you should only do it. You shouldn't do it that long,
Right.
because the devil might tempt you. And the body, the woman doesn't have authority over her body. The man does, and the man doesn't have authority over his body, but the woman does. And so this is really stressing, and that's why I wanted to mention it, because a sexless marriage is not biblical. I understand there's things that happen, and you're tired because of the kids,
Yeah.
and life be life and all this stuff.
Yeah.
I get it. I definitely get it. And this is obviously not, one party should not be forcing the other party to
Absolutely.
do anything. Obviously,
Right.
that's a crime.
Right.
And but sex is important. Sex was
Yes.
designed for this, and women do need to understand that sex is important to men for their relationships. It's a it 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 is a godly
Hmm.
appetite.
Yeah.
We have sexual desire from God. Sex is a good thing. I know we have perverted it and all of these craziness in this world, but it is
Yeah.
it is a good thing. So
And
anyway,
I think I was like, that threw me off because I thought you were like wrapping it up, and then it's like, and sex, right? Um, but I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think this is where men and women might differ in terms of and this is not to say because they're, I can't speak for all women. Um, yes, it's important, but I think in terms of where it's prioritized for a man is definitely higher up on the priority list than it might be for a woman. Um, so thank you for mentioning
Yeah, yeah, um, yeah. So, and the relationship should be that she doesn't feel like it's a chore. You know, she shouldn't feel like it's an obligation. It should be like, I mean, this is my husband. Like,
that. Yeah.
you know,
Again, because women are emotionally wired,
uh huh.
they it's not gonna feel like, not forceful, like, but it's not gonna feel like you have to beg, um, if you're already doing your part in caring for her, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
If you're already treating her, with kindness, and calling her, checking in, seeing, all of those things, then it won't be this tug of war. She's gonna willingly want to do it because she feels connected to you already.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that's a tip for the men. You know,
Thank you.
when you're married, don't don't think you're just gonna get it all the time, and you're like treating her poorly the entire day. Like, she's not gonna do it anyway. That's
Rightly
what.
so. No, no,
Yeah,
that's real. That's real,
yeah,
and that's, I don't think it was one of the questions, but there's a lot. There's way more uh, like orders from God to men and husbands than there is to women. Women is basically respect your husband.
yeah.
Respect, submit to your husband. Men, it's is love them.
Right.
Crazy enough, the Bible says that men need to love their wives. They need to not be bitter towards them. They need to live with them in an understanding way. Treat them like their own body. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's a lot.
So, ladies, we have one. I mean, in that sense, men have more to do in that sense.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
we do. So, okay, was that my question or your question?
I think that was. I don't even know.
I think
I
that
think
was
that
your
was.
question.
Okay.
Yeah, that was your question. Okay, so let me fix this.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
All right. All right. So, in the spirit of
Oh
men and women, romantic relationships, marriages,
yeah.
and whatnot, courtships, you know, there is this stigma. And I think, honestly, I think like a few questions that I have for you are all kind of related. I realize that.
Yeah.
And I also realize that, we're not going to get through all these questions today. So we're going to have a part two. So I'll do this one and then we'll do yours and we'll save it for a part two. Cause this is a good series. Actually, we could call it something anyway. Uh, um, so the stigma is happy wife, happy life. I don't think that's a biblical phrase. I don't think. I mean, that gets railed on in the manosphere uh, online. But the question is, women want men to be honest. I mean, in all these dating shows and online dating and all these things, like the first thing, like on Hinge, the question that they ask is, all that I ask is you blank, and they fill in the blank. 9 times out of 10, it's like, be honest with me, be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
And on dates, I mean, I've heard that to no end. Be honest. So now the
Yeah.
the issue is
Uh,
sometimes the truth hurts.
yeah.
Sometimes, we just talked about it earlier. So the question is, should men lie to their woman if they know the truth? The truth will hurt them. For an example, it could be pretty egregious, but let's set for an example. Let's do
Does
something
this
lighthearted.
look fat?
Yes. So
Why do women?
anyway,
Anyway, okay, so
I'm gonna find out the truth. I guarantee you that.
oh yeah, we will. So we're gonna break this up into two parts. So the
Break
lying
it
part.
down for
Uh,
us.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So I do have a verse for that. But so obviously lying should have there should be no room for lying in any relationship, right? That you know the Bible is very clear. The references Colossians 3:9, do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off your old self with its practices, right? Like this is if we're talking to godly people here, then lying is part of our old man. It's what we did before we came to Christ.
Are
So
you
it's
preaching now?
oh come on now. Um, so there's the spiritual aspect of it that God is telling us not to lie, right? And then there's the emotional side of it that when you do lie, it causes a lot of trouble in the relationship. It causes, the person not to trust each other. It creates a lot of issues. So you definitely don't want to leave any room for dishonesty in any relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Period, point blank. We're gonna leave that to the side. That's a no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other part of this question is the woman's response, right? How do I manage this woman's response if I tell her the truth? What if she doesn't like it? What if she gets angry? What if she gets overreactive? Because really, the lying is functioning to save you from her reaction, right? To
Mm.
protect you against her reaction. I don't want to deal with her getting pissed off at me, so I'm going to lie. That's how the lie is functioning,
Mm.
right? So you remove the lie and you actually there are other ways to deal with this, right? And we talked about again communication, right? So give me an example maybe of like a common maybe in your own experience response that you've gotten from a woman after you've told her the truth. What might that look like? Why would it feel for a man better to lie to her? Like what is being prevented there?
Um, like sometimes it opens a can of worms to a whole nother conversation
Right.
after
Yeah.
uh you're just tired and exhausted, or you just don't even want to talk about that. um but I would say it's less in my own life, because I guess I get in trouble because I don't, like, I just be straight up with certain things
Right.
sometimes. But one time I told, one time I well, this is not like, I guess that's more about the delivery and
Yeah.
timing rather than like, because I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever lied to a girl to prevent her from,
But
to
I
prevent a
imagine
reaction.
but I imagine it's if someone is considering lying rather than telling the truth, it's because they're trying to avoid a negative
So
response.
I think, like, for example, does this dress make me look fat?
Yeah.
And it's, or do you like this dress?
Right.
And I'd be like, yeah, I mean, uh, I think a man who didn't want to hurt his wife's feeling,
Right.
because I think in general he probably doesn't even care what she's wearing, even though he
Right.
actually doesn't like it. He probably wouldn't say I don't like it, because it'll be like, because she likes it. He knows that she likes it, or he gets a gift, and I think I was younger. I was very, very young, but I got a gift from a family member, and it was like a jacket or something, and I did not like it at all. She asked me, "Do I like it?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And I mean, it was a whole bunch of family was around. It was,
That's pressure.
for me, I was trying to. It was like, I don't know. It's like, how do I,
Yeah.
like, she didn't have to give me the gift. I probably won't wear it, but
Yeah.
Am I going to tell you that you have poor taste in
Right.
my fashion, or you don't know my fashion, or things like that? And I guess
I can
it's
see
like
you sweating already.
it's like I guess what is the value of this person knowing the truth of it?
Yeah.
So what is the value of this family member knowing that, like, she doesn't know how I like to dress, or she
Yeah.
didn't buy me the right outfit? The fact is she did something nice for me and I should be grateful, things
Right.
like that. So
Yeah, it's definitely an awkward situation like that. You don't want to appear ungrateful or things like that. But I think being honest, let's say those are things that happen to us often. Like you're like, oh, thank you, I appreciate it. And in the back of your mind, like you're gonna give it to somebody else. Like
and I did. I gave it to my dad. My dad rocked the heck out of that jacket. He
Right.
was wearing it. He loved it. He loved it.
Like you put it to good use. I get that. So I think a lot of times I've heard men say before, like, I'm not going to tell my woman this because if I do, she's going to get really upset. And I don't have to want to deal with, her arguing with me over this. The thing is that lying about it is actually going to create more damage than you actually dealing with it in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, plain and simple, you'll have to work that out with the woman. Now, women, this is a little thing for women. Women, if you're not ready to hear an honest answer,
Ha! Yo, she's on fire. Oh man, there you go. You spitting now. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
if
Go
you're
ahead.
not ready to hear the answer, don't ask your man. Like if you put on a dress and you don't feel comfortable in that dress, why are you putting it on him to tell you it don't look right? You know? So I think it's twofold, right? It's you want to be honest, but you also the hope is that your partner will be mature enough to actually take the honesty, right?
Yeah.
And like you asked me, my opinion, I'm giving it to you. Of course, we talked about the delivery, right? The tone. You're not going to say you look like a fat cow. You're not going to say that. That's not loving.
Yeah.
But
heifer. Yeah.
But if you do everything in your power to be honest and she's not receiving it well, that's not on you. That's on her. So,
I agree.
ladies,
I agree.
you ask, and this applies not to just women. This applies to all of us. A lot of times we
Right.
ask for advice, and we're not ready to receive the truth.
Yeah, and how can we gauge that? Because it's like, somebody asks you a question, you're like, "Do you want me to be honest?" That precursor statement basically, like, it means that
Yeah.
you're about to say something
Yeah.
that they're not gonna like. So it's like you're basically answering the question. Like, babe, do you like this dress? You want me to be honest? Oh, never
Right.
mind. That's probably what's gonna happen. Never mind.
Right. We do that because we know that it can be attention, right? So we kind of like we anticipate it. So we're like, do you
Right.
really want to know? Because I don't know if this is going to land very well with you. Now, those are really simple examples, but what if it's a more serious thing? Like
No, serious. No.
in terms of, for example, like, the man did something, he wasn't behaving very well, or she honestly say, hey, were you texting this woman? Or, what if it has to do with fidelity in the relationship?
Oh no, honest. You gotta be honest on that. Like, there's because then that's manipulation, because
Right.
you're withholding material piece of information from someone that could affect their next move, and it's really abuse is really what it is, because they don't know that you are not faithful to them, and they don't know that you are a charlatan, or you're fake. You're yeah. That a
Yeah.
woman needs to, or a man, both.
Right.
Because women and men, are unfaithful. So
Right.
you need
Right.
to be honest, because
Yeah.
I may not want to be with somebody who flirts all the time with these people or is texting their ex all the time. I may not
Mhm.
want to be with someone like that, and that's my
Yeah.
choice. And so
Right.
you withholding that information is removing that choice from you, and
Right.
it's abusive and manipulative, because we're no longer really in a relationship anymore. Like this
Yeah.
is a sham.
Right.
So definitely, definitely the question is more geared towards like more lighthearted, like
Yeah.
but that was a perfect response.
Yeah.
Men lie to their woman to avoid a certain outcome, and so that was really good. That's definitely gonna
Yeah.
be a highlight.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, okay. Anything else on that?
I think we're good.
Okay. So now
Okay.
we are going to do
My question.
your question. I don't know.
There
All
you
right.
go. You like to be on the right side.
Yeah, well, because I'm looking like this
Okay.
way. Yeah.
I got you. Okay. So, how much importance do men give to a woman's emotional needs? Um, and the reason why I came up with this question is because sometimes I hear men make comments that make it appear that a woman's emotional needs are a burden to a man.
Mm.
Like, oh, she's so emotional. Oh, she's always this. Oh, she's always that. Blah, blah, right? So, how important is it for a man to tend to a woman's emotional needs in terms of being a safe space for her?
Mm. Um, I would say a man that doesn't care about his. One last time. I would say that a man that does not care about a woman's emotional needs is toxic. That's a toxic masculinity trait, and it's a violation of Ephesians 5. It's a violation of First Peter 3. It's a violation of Colossians 3. And so Ephesians 5 says that a man as the head of the wife, as Christ was the head of the church, he should be treating her as his own body.
Mhm.
And no one mistreats his own body, but cares, but nourishes it and cherishes it. And a lot of scholars believe that nourish is tending to the inside of his woman, and then cherish is tending to the outside.
Love that.
And so, a woman's emotions and her, spiritual health, spiritual maturity, is all ingrained in the inside of her being. And
Right.
so, definitely not a godly man, definitely not. And the issue, here's the rub. The rub is, why does First Peter 3 say for men to live with their wives in an understanding way? Because naturally, men don't understand women.
And
We
men and women also, we got a hard time too. So
we don't understand a
yeah.
woman's emotions. We don't,
Yeah.
because, and like you mentioned earlier, it's really stemming from our upbringing. Like, women are trained to care for, like, they're trained by their parents, her father, other people, that her emotions matter, and her emotions should dictate her reality. Men are not treated like that.
Right.
In fact, it's the exact opposite.
Mhm.
A man's emotions is a hindrance to his reality. So that's why he needs to And that's one of the questions later. But that's why he needs to remove them,
Right.
or disregard them.
Right.
And so,
Can I ask you a question?
yeah.
Do you think that that's why this is so prominent in terms of, so if a man isn't aware of his own emotions and he's grown up and it doesn't really play a big role, um, is that kind of the way he treats his own emotions is the way that's being projected onto the woman?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that's what comes natural.
Right.
We do what we train for.
Right.
So we're trained to disregard our emotions, or to push through them, to persevere. That's how we're trained, and that's how we're gonna act. You practice like you play like you practice, and
Right.
so um, this is why people. This is why men in particular, uh, it doesn't come natural. Like, and here I get this a lot in relationships in
Hmm.
my past, where it's like women expect me to be their best female friend,
Yeah.
where it's like you are going to confide in me on certain things. Now, I get it. Sometimes men, we need to recognize that whether a woman is just um, needing to vent,
Right.
or she's actually looking for you, inviting you in to help her. But um, I've been told that, like, because I don't, I guess my interpretation of what I'm hearing is like they don't feel, like you said, safe space. There
Right.
definitely should be a safe space. There is going to be a difference in how you feel discussing certain things with your, girlfriends versus your man.
Right.
Like, it's never going to be as comfortable talking about certain things, especially if there are things that you're insecure about,
Hmm.
when you're talking to them about, to your man, than when you're talking to your girlfriends, and vice versa. Well,
Right.
there's some conversations that, men and husbands, they can't have, or they feel like they can't have with their woman, because there's judgment there. There is kind of maybe a need to protect the other person from certain things, which we're going to talk about later.
Yeah.
But um, it 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 doesn't come natural.
Yeah.
A man, I don't think a man should be like this whole idea that you marry your best friend. Like,
Hmm.
I get that, and that's good. You need to have a close fellowship, community, relationship with someone during your courtship, and that's what a courtship really flushes out.
Right.
But there is going to be a difference. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not a woman, and you're not going to be able to. We're not going to be able to relate to each other like we're both female friends. There's going to be a difference now.
So, so how then would, how do you then, so, and I agree, women should have, their own circle of, their sisterhood where they can kind of talk about things and it flows more naturally and things like that. um, but is there something that men can do a little bit better in terms of, rather than, because again, I see this play out a lot, they're like completely shut the woman down when she's trying to
Yeah.
express herself, um, and that's going to create emotional disconnect between
Mm-hmm.
you and your significant other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there is there any workaround rather than saying like, go talk to your homegirl about it? You know,
Yeah. No. No. You
how
definitely
much,
shouldn't dismiss them.
yeah, how much, space can be given to a woman, because when a woman has a significant other, she's the first person, like her significant other is the first person she's gonna want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be really important for her to feel safe. And granted, that's not gonna mean you're gonna have all the answers for all of her turmoils and all of that stuff, but that you're a safe space, meaning that you allow her, you listen, you you know, give her a little rub on the back, like it's gonna be okay, a little encouragement, a little support, something, but don't like leave her high and dry.
Yeah.
You
No.
know?
No. Definitely. Being the head of the household comes with the responsibility from God to nourish a woman, your woman. And so that is listening.
Yeah.
That is actually engaging with her through the things she's talking about. Now, there should just be a communication and a agreement about like when's the appropriate time to do that, because sometimes, you know, a man is if a man shouldn't do this, but if he does, it's probably because it's like a bad time. It's like when is ladies should ask their man, their husbands, or their boyfriends, when is a good time to discuss things with you. Now, don't ask him like when something's popped off, especially if it's an emergency or yada,
Right.
yada, yada. But there should be, in the courtship, there should be discussions about, okay, the appropriate time to discuss certain, like your day. Cause I mean, that is intimacy. Intimacy is emotional. Intimacy is, showing that you care about and are interested in the things that she goes through on a day-to-day basis. And so and that's probably why a lot of women feel disconnected, because there isn't that intimacy. Like maybe they can sit on the couch and watch a movie together.
But they can't really talk about anything.
Right.
Deep.
And so, and definitely, as they say, which I think is accurate, it's like, a man falls in love through his eyes, a woman falls in love through her ears.
Mm-hmm.
So, you do need to, and I think if a man is truly like washing her, keeping his wife spotless by the washing of the water through the word, like he should know what she's going through, and he should provide support in that way. Like sometimes, and that's another thing, there needs to be understanding, because see, it says live with your wives in an understanding way. There needs to be an understanding of when and she should make it known, like, mm-hmm. I invite you to help me with this, because that's where our mind goes from jump. Our mind goes, okay, you have an issue, we have a solution. But if it's not, you don't want a solution, you just want to vent, or you just, want to be heard and, encouraged, which he should do anyway, even if he fixes it. That should be known, like that should be expressed, so he knows, okay, what vein, because sometimes in relationships that are, rocky, or they're just trying to get things right, they're on opposite ends. So one person is wanting to fix something, the other person just wants support, or the woman wants fixing, and then he's in support mode, and so they're not coming together.
Communication there.
Yeah. Sure. So
whether it's that the woman will come out the gate and say, I just need someone to hear me vent, or that the man would say, how can I support you? Like,
yeah.
What do you need from me right now? Yeah.
Exactly.
And I know we're going to talk about emotional intelligence, but I think a really huge thing for men to know is, like, if you're able to tap into empathy with your significant other, that's going to take you a very long way. Meaning, you don't have to do much sometimes other than say, dang, what you're going through is really hard, and I'm sorry to hear this. Mm-hmm. That will take you far, my friend. That will take you far. Honestly, it's almost easier than having to fix it,
I was just going to say, it sounds easier. Well, you got to be real. You got to be genuine with it. But like,
right, of course, you're not going to say like, I'm sorry.
Oh, dang, babe. and be back in the video game.
Lord help me.
But well, that I believe is a good first part. We got through 5 questions, and
Man, we go halfway.
we got a lot more. We're not even halfway, so there will definitely be a multi-part series to this. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. This is part 1. What are we going to call this?
I need to think of
We'll think about it. We'll get back to you, okay? But the part 1 of the Battle of the Sexes, pastor and therapist talk about how men and women can have better relationships, and you don't want to miss part 2. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us, and we can't wait for the next one. My name is Zachary Carroll, aka Pastor Z. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Y'all be cool.
Bye.
Also, so let me, I'm going to finish this